Hi there. Welcome to edition 3 of our Decoding GMAT Sentence Correction series. My name is Anand Venkatesan. I'm the founder and mentor of mentorscapital.com. We're a platform that helps students by the way of mentorship in order to achieve their study abroad dreams, whether it comes to preparing for the GMAT or GRE or writing and crafting that perfect application. I think mentorship has enough and more to offer, right? But more about that later. Let's get down to our agenda for today, which is to discuss, a GMAT sentence correction problem and learn how, to approach the problem, right? In our previous video, I've already talked about how you can use, identify the sentence structure and check the rules for parallelism there. This is the question I'm going to deal with in today's session. Pause the video here, try the question yourself, and then come back and watch how I will, give you an approach to arrive at the right answer. All right, so let me get started with this video. First step is obviously to identify the structure and the meaning of the sentence. What is it trying to convey, right? And if I look at the sentence, and I'm going to try and break it down into its various components. First component, the consumer confidence levels, right? So clearly, this is a noun. We're talking about the level of confidence, so levels, right? Plural noun, but described also as that of consumers' confidence, right? So consumer confidence level, an entire phrase acts as a noun, which many economists consider an early indication of an economy's direction, right? So since it begins with the relative phrase which refers back to the noun before it, and in fact, this entire phrase is enclosed within commas. Big hint that it's probably a modifier, and it indeed is so, right? It describes, the confidence levels of consumers, right? So it's a modifier, and I know that when I encounter a modifier and I'm trying to identify structure and meaning, I can quickly sort of, remove it, right? It doesn't really affect the overall sentence and its meaning, right? So I can remove it, move on, right? Sagged, right? So what sagged? Consumer confidence levels sagged, which means they dropped as the stock market tumbled. So both things fell, right? Tense also tells me they both fell at the same time, right? So that's what's happening. And there's also a conjunction, right? As, right? So basically, this happened as something else happened, and conjunction typically splits it into two clauses, each of which should have a subject and a verb. We have before as we have the confidence levels sagged, right? So subject and verb, and in the second part of the sentence after after the conjunction, the stock market tumbled, right? So you can see subject and verb match, right? In the by identifying the structure, I can quickly check subject and verb as well. And finally, I come to the last portion of the sentence, which is after comma, but not dramatically enough for giving a clear picture of the new spending patterns, right? So this is like begins with a conjunction, but might lead you to think, well, let me check for parallelism. But what comes after that? But dramatically enough or not dramatically negated, right? So, but not dramatically enough, right? We're describing what? We're describing how the stock market tumbled, right? Not dramatically enough for giving a clear picture, right? So, not dramatically enough for something, right? I mean, at least at a basic level, I can understand that. And is that correct? Well, yes, we're still describing the modifier, right? We're still describing, sorry, we're describing the verb tumbled, right? So that makes sense. But and that also helps me understand what we're trying to say, right? That the consumer levels sagged as the stock market tumbled, but this tumbling was not as dramatic as, dramatically enough for something else, right? So that's the meaning. Okay. Now that I've understood the meaning and I've broken down the structure, right? I can obviously remove the verb modifier here just to make it concise and easy to identify in terms of meaning, right? But if I move on, the very next step would be, well, let me compare this now with the other option choices and identify what are the minor changes, what we call as splits, right? And so if I identify the splits, I look at the original sentence, and it's very easy to sort of, focus on, the first portion of the sentence tells me that, well, tense is, there's a change in the tense. And there's also a change in this conjunction, right? But has been replaced with and in a few places. That's the second change. And the third change, I notice very clearly in option A and B is that, okay, for giving has become to give. And then there's, other iterations, in the other sentences as well, right? So three portions that I can probably compare. We'll begin with the conjunction first, right? Because right, the idea is quite straightforward, right? The conjunctions here are but and. But is in generally as a conjunction, it sort of indicates a contrast. The idea in the main clause and the idea following the but should be in contrast, right? They should sort of say opposite things, right? And on the other hand, agrees with the. I mean, even if it doesn't agree, it does sort of add to what was said in the previous statement, right? It was raining, and we all found shelter underneath the railway platform, right? So there are two ideas which are in agreement, which are additive in a sense, right? And clearly, if I look at the sentence itself, but not so we're saying the stock market tumbled, but not dramatically enough for something, right? And so the idea is that, are you trying to say that the tumbling was enough or not? And if it's not enough, well, then you're going against the flow of ideas here, right? You're contrasting something that was previously mentioned, which is that the stock market tumbled, right? But not dramatically, right? So you're bringing the degree down, and the better better conjunction to do so would be but, right? So I'll choose but, which means that options C and D straight away, which contain the and, obviously would be incorrect. And so I can rule out C and D, right? Okay. One split, two eliminations, right? The second split I'll look at is the tense, right? Now, the idea between, comparing tumbled in its original form and has tumbled as it's given in some of the other options is that, well, the simple past, which is what tumbled is, generally indicates that the action happened in the past, right? Well, something happened in the past. That's simple past. But the second, form of the tense here is has tumbled, which is the present perfect tense, right? And usually present perfect tense is in the present, but with some connection with the past, right? It's not like the action happened in the past. The action happened right now, but seemingly has a connection with the past. And if you ask yourself, is that really true in this sentence, right? The stock market tumbled versus the stock market has tumbled. Does it have any connection with what happened last year, maybe last month? Absolutely not. We don't have any inkling about that, right? Nothing information, no information in the question sort of indicates that. So we can sort of think, well, no need for the perfect tense here, right? And since the perfect tense is wrong, that helps me eliminate one more option. Well, it helps me because we've already eliminated D. Additionally, I now eliminate option E, which contains the present perfect tense, right? So I can rule out option E. That leaves me with option A and B. And so the third split I'll identify between A and B is, well, for giving versus to give, right? So option A says enough for giving, and option B says enough to give. And so there's a variation in how the verb is used. And in general, the direction here, the logic here is that, well, idiomatically speaking, when you say enough, then you say enough to do something, right? Enough to give, not enough for giving, right? And so idiomatically, to is better. It also conveys the intention better. When you say to, then it means something has been done to do something else, right? Remember, it's the to plus a verb, right? So something has been done to do something else, right? So it's like A leads to B, right? But in the second, option A, which is the second form of representing the same idea, is that enough for giving. So it's almost as something enables something else, not really leads to something else. It enables, right? Like for example, I could say, I need to buy vegetables for cooking lunch, right? But the act of me buying vegetables will not really lead to lunch being cooked, right? But this will help, right? So that's the way in which you use for, and clearly that also gives you an inkling that for giving is not correct. And so I can rule out option A, and since I've ruled out options A, B, A, C, D, E, and quickly look at the screen, and the splits will help you identify, right? If you're identifying the splits, then the first split I'll identify as, well, but versus and I know and is incorrect, so I can rule out option C and D, and then we compared the tense tumbled versus has tumbled, and we said has tumbled is incorrect, and finally when it came to options A and B, we compared, for giving versus to give, and we figured that for giving is incorrect. So correct answer is obviously option B, right? And I hope that you liked this approach, this way of dealing with problems. Try to break it down very, very quickly. It takes about, a few seconds in your mind once you get used to it. And then once you've done that, apply all the rules that you know with regard to sentence, with regard to subject and verb, pronouns and their antecedents, even tense and parallelism, right? And further sometimes comparisons that happen in sentences, right? Well, I hope you had a fun time learning about this structure. And do give me more questions, suggestions, more ideas. Write into me at the email I shown here. That's teammentorscapital@gmail.com. You can also text me on WhatsApp, right, at 73038399292, or just visit our website and leave a call back request, right, if you're too lazy, that is. But our very core belief is around centering around mentorship, right? We believe that mentorship can solve anything, any questions that you have with regard to applying to a university in India or abroad, choice of program, you know how to build the best profile, how to represent it better in my application, and so on and so forth, right? And this mentorship is delivered by us in three packages, three distinct sort of offerings. One is preparing for exams like GRE or the GMAT. Number two, constructing the application itself. Every application involves a statement of purpose, a letter of recommendation, and a couple of other things like, video assessments or even interviews in person or online. And finally, we also help you with the first stage, which is a little more exploratory in terms of which course is suited to my profile, my aspirations, which country, which geography should I shortlist, and what, should I look at when it comes to choosing colleges and universities, and we can lay it out for you very, very nicely. So do write into us if you feel the need for any help from my end. And well, if you have the need to practice a little more, click on the link in the description. I'm going to also share free practice exercises for GMAT data sufficiency as well as sentence correction. So do click on the link below. Thank you. Have a great day, and see you in our very next video.